Recorded.
All right. Have you joined a live class? Okay. तो फिर इधर क्या कर रहे थे वो keep पढ़ाई getting recorded. Okay, so the last lesson is written by Alphonse Daudet, and he is a French novelist and a short story writer. It is set in the days of Franco-Prussian War, in which France was defeated by Prussia, led by Bismarck. Prussia then consisted of what now are the nations of Germany, Poland, and parts of Austria. In this story, the French districts of Alsace and Lorraine have passed into Prussian hands. So let's read the story to find out the effect this had, the effect of war on the school life or the common people of the French society. I started for school very late that morning and was in great dread of schooling. Now here I is the narrator, like he's a little boy named Franz. Now the first question comes why the narrator has used a little boy's image to like narrate the story. What comes to your mind regarding this? I told this before. The perspective of the narrator to be a child is to like showcase the trauma or the like deep effect of war that goes on the children. Even like those kind of like stories are sympathized and empathized more. Like you have studied about Anne Frank, who wrote a diary, and she was a Holocaust victim, so her diary became very popular. Same was the notion of Alphonse Daudet. So he represented the story as a small boy, so that people could empathize and relate to what trauma goes through the children's mind or any like the particular society's mind. What images, what he sees as the world as. So the story is narrated as the perspective of a child. Okay. I started for school very late that morning and was in great dread of a scolding. Dread of a scolding means fear of scolding, especially because M. Hamel had said that he would question us on participles. Participles refers to the French grammar where he was learning participles. And I did not know the first word about them. For a moment, I thought of running away and spending the day out of doors. It was so warm, so bright. The birds were chirping at the edge of the woods, and in the open field of the sawmill, the Prussian soldiers were drilling. So it was a warm, bright day, and for a child, like, what is the significance of warm, bright day? So, like, how is it different from Indian day? Like, why would a bright, sunny day attract a child there? Because it's yes, this is the main point. It was a warm bright. Generally, it is always cold there. So it was a warm bright day. That means it was a day to be out or go for excursions and picnics and spend time outside rather than sitting inside. Got it? That's why he was attracted. Now it would be a question like why was France tempted towards the warm bright day? So the answer would be since the French the place the weather condition of the place was always cold, so warm bright day naturally attracted a child. Okay. The birds were chirping at the edge of the woods in the open field back of the sawmill. The Prussian soldiers were drilling. Drilling here refers to yes, maneuvers. It was all much more tempting than the rule for participles. He was not willing or he was reluctant to go to the class and he was not willing to study. But I had the strength to resist and hurried off to school. Yet he resisted his temptation and he hurried off to school. When I passed the town hall, there was a crowd in front of the bulletin board. Mark this word bulletin board. Bulletin board is a symbol. Public board which is used to depict the current information about the town. No, it is write down. The bulletin board that hangs outside the town hall represents the oppression of the Prussians. तो उसका significance होगी ना chapter के पर normally तो ये होगा जैसे facts वगैरह news. Yes, it is a news. Literally, it means a news board where all the news were put up. But it symbolizes certain things. What does it symbolize? This question has come in MCQ in one of the boards.
many years, the only
bad news were coming there. So that's why bulletin board that hang outside represents, write down, represent the oppression of Prussian occupiers. And it became a source of communication for their repressive edicts and commands. EDICTS, edicts and commands. Became a source of repressive edicts, EDICTS, and commands. Or repressive measures also you can write. All right. So for the last 2 years, all our bad news had come from there. The lost battles, the draft, the orders of commanding officer. And I thought to myself without stopping, what can be the matter now? So they were always getting updates of the lost battles because our war goes on for a long period of time. It is not a one-day act. So since many years they were facing the trouble and they were getting all bad news there. Now France was wondering what next. Then as I hurried by as fast as I could go, the blacksmith watcher, who was there with his apprentice, reading the bulletin, called after me. Don't go so fast, Bub. You'll go to your school in plenty of time. This line is important. Here, the blacksmith has sarcastically commented on France, who was getting late for school, and that's why he poked him that you have enough time. What does enough time signify? That means he doesn't have enough time. It's ironic, actually. Okay.
But basically, France was thinking he is saying that so that he says, "Oh, you have enough time. वैसे तुम late हो गए हो, अब कितना ही जाओगे?"
Yes.
But he was actually referring to that
Yes.
a friendship no longer allowed in there.
Correct. consequences का पता था जो blacksmith. Yes, yes, but France was not aware. So उसको लगा कि उसको ऐसी he's just poking him since he's late for the school. Okay, so now you can also note down this since Franz was very negligent about going to the school, it reflects his negligence about education or negligence about education in the society. Like Franz was thinking about skipping the school, which signifies what? He was negligent towards the studies. Okay. Watchers comment. Watchers indicate like Franz as Bub. What does this indicate? That the community is tight knit. That means close knit. Everybody knows each other. So the word Bub signifies, write down. Yes. So whom will you? अब तुम रास्ते में किसी को भी जाके हो, मतलब कुछ भी बुला दोगे नहीं ना? You call by nicknames only those person whom you are close with, right? So here the word Bub signifies that the community was a close knit community, and Watcher calls Franz by his nickname. Okay. I thought that he was making fun of me and reached M. Hamill's little garden all out of breath. Usually, when school began, there was a great bustle which could be heard out in the street. The opening and closing of desks, lessons repeated in unison, very loud with our hands over our ears to understand better, and the teacher's great ruler rapping on the table. So, generally, the image of the school is all of a chaos and hustle and bustle, which was missing that day. So, there was an eerie silence. Okay, the eerie silence signifies something was wrong. So there was but now it was also still. I had counted on the commotion to get to my desk without being seen. So Franz imagined that he would get or slide into the class without being noticed, because when there is a commotion in the class, कौन आ रहा है कौन जा रहा है, nobody notices, right? A teacher भी busy होता है किसी चीज में, तो you just can sneak into the class. But here the scene was opposite. What Franz had planned that he would sneak into the class among the chaos, but it was not like an everyday school. It was like a Sunday morning. So here the classes atmosphere is compared to Sunday morning. Similarly has been used here as the literary device. What is Sunday morning? What kind of morning is a Sunday morning? It's holiday and generally schools are closed that day, so there won't be any chaos. It will be in like calm and placid situation. Through the window, I saw my classmates already in their places and M. Hamel walking up and down with his terrible iron ruler under his arm. I had to open the door and go in before everybody. You can imagine how I blushed and how frightened I was. Give me a synonym of blushed here.
Scared.
Nervous, intimidating. These are important MCQs you will get. Intimidating or nervous. But nothing happened. M. Hamel saw me and said very kindly. So, this is something ironic that happened. He was expecting to be scolded as he was late to the class, but instead, M. Hamel just told him very pleasantly that go to your place quickly, little Franz. We were beginning without you. So, I jumped over the bench and sat down at my desk. Not till then, when I had got a little over my fright. Not till then, when I had got a little over my fright. What does this line mean? मतलब अभी वो सेटल ही हो रहा था और उसके फ्राइट्स मतलब उसका जो नर्वसनेस था उससे थोड़ा सा ही कंफर्टेबल हो रहा था और तभी उसको कुछ और दिखता है क्लास में. Did I see that our teacher had on his beautiful green coat, his frilled shirt and the little black silk cap, all embroidered, that he never wore except on inspection and prize days. Now this is important. All right. So dress of M. Hamel. What does this signify?
It was a special day.
Yes. So it was a special day, and why was M. Hamel wearing his French attire?
Ma'am, because it was the last class of the French language, and in order to pay respect
To the
towards
French
the
language.
French.
So what does M. Hamel's attire signify? Patriotism. His patriotism is reflected through the dressing. He didn't want to get rid of the French culture, so that's why he like had put on the French attire to boast about his country and to take pride in his language. And his like grandeur attire signifies that something momentous was happening that day. It was a historical day for them. Okay. Besides the whole school seemed so strange and solemn, but the thing that surprised me most was to see on the back benches that were always empty, the village people sitting quietly like old ourselves. Old Hauser with his three-cornered hat, the former mayor, the former postmaster, and several other besides. Here the word former has been used. Why?
Because they are no
Because they have been enslaved by German, and there will be new mayor and new positions now. So whoever belonged to the French community or the French government or authority, they were former now. So former word यही signify करता है. Now why did they come? Again, it reveals patriotism. They were reflecting resistance by learning their language. So all the village people, M. Hamel, everybody was reflecting resistance or power of patriotism. अमन समझ में आ रहा है? Okay. Everybody looked sad, and Hauser had bought an old primer. What does old primer signify? A primary book. Thumbed at the edges. What do you mean by thumbed? It was very old, so it was like if you get a hold of an old book, you find the edges not very sharp. It is blunt at the edges. That is called thumb. And he held it open on his knees with his great spectacles lying across the pages. While I was wondering about it all, M. Hamel mounted his chair, and the same grave and gentle tone which he had used to me said, "My children, this is the last lesson I shall give you. The order has come from Berlin to teach only German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. The new master comes tomorrow. This is your last French lesson. I want you to be very attentive." Now, this has an historical reference. It is in the period of 1870 to 72. So that time there were mass, like what, conquering of states and formation of nation states, if you remember. So when the nation states were formed, people were gathering their own cultural identity. So if German had occupied Alsace and Lorraine, their first preference was to imply language of German and unite German people together. So they want a strong community. All the European belts had wanted a strong community. That's why they were binding everybody by language, because language is the greatest weapon. And if you are very steadfast with your language, or if you are very you have a strong grasp over the language, uh, you can be like a great patriot, and you can also spread the patriotism all along. So that's why the emphasis was on capturing language. Same thing happened in the history with Poland. Once when Poland was enslaved, uh, Polish people did not get rid of their language, though they were encouraged to get rid of their language. Okay? What a thunderclap these words were to me. The moment Franz heard that this was the last French lesson, so it was a thunderclap. Thunderclap refers to surprise or shock. Okay. The words were a shock to him because he was not wondering that this was the last lesson. Oh, the wretches, that was what they had put up at the town hall. Now he understood why the blacksmith told him.
What is the riches?
Wretches means it is a like local slang that is used. Oh my God. Oh, the wretches refers to oh my God. So now he understood what they had put up on the town hall and why the blacksmith watcher sarcastically commented on him that you have too much time. You have a lot of time to go. My last French lesson. See the exclamation mark. This question will come. What does the exclamation mark at the end of Francis' dialogue signify?
Unexpected.
Unexpected, shock, surprise. ये MCQ में भी आता है. Why I hardly knew how to write. I should never learn anymore. This is his repentance or regret. The exclamation mark at the end of the line, I hardly knew how to write. I should never learn anymore. This signifies his repentance or regret for not learning his lesson. Oh, how sorry I was for not learning my lessons, for seeking birds' eggs or going sliding on the Saar. Saar is a river. Okay. My books that had seemed such a nuisance a while ago, so heavy to carry, my grammar and my history of the saints, were old friends now that I couldn't give up. Now here is a transition in Franz's character. Earlier he was a reluctant child, not willing to study. Now suddenly when he imagines that he won't be able to study his language anymore, he becomes very serious, and he is regretful for not learning or not taking his lessons seriously. And M. Hamel too, the idea that while the old man of the village was sitting there in the back of the room, It was because they were sorry too that they had not gone to school more. It was their way of thanking our master for his 40 years of faithful service and of showing their respect for the country that was theirs no more. Why the people from village were there? Because they wanted to pay a tribute to their language, and since it was the last lesson, M. Hamel was a teacher there for 40 years. So they came to pay the tribute, and they were also regretful for not taking the language very seriously. Nobody had the expertise on the language. So that's why they were repenting on the situation. So here it reveals the friend, like, please write down it somewhere. The people of Alsace and Lorraine had an intention of procrastinating things. People of Laurel and Alsace had intention of procrastinating things. So the theme of procrastination is revealed here. Keeping everything for tomorrow is procrastination. Delaying. While I was thinking of all this, I heard my name called. It was my turn to recite. What would I not have given to be able to say that dreadful rule for the participle all through? Very loud and clear and without one mistake. Like he was willing to tell or make his like best appearance or give his best in the last class of by dictating the rule of participle. But I got mixed up on the first words and stood there holding on my desk, my heart beating and not daring to look up. So time and tides waste for none. When you are given the situation to study something and you are not very careful of that, there will be a time when you will repent that why did not I take the lessons seriously. So that was the situation in France here. He didn't take his lessons seriously. So now, when it was the last day of the class, he was regretful or reproaching himself. He was reproaching himself for not attending his classes properly, and he was perplexed in the first word. He couldn't even pronounce his own language. Now, the entire story is based on linguistic chauvinism. I discussed it in the previous class. What is linguistic chauvinism? Taking pride in your own language. That is linguistic chauvinism. So here, since they did not care about the language, but now they were taking pride in the language and they don't want to get rid of the language. It happens. Like for example, you are in a society and suddenly there is an order that you cannot speak Hindi anymore. Everybody has to talk in English only, otherwise it will be a punishable offense. So how will you feel? All the vernacular dialects will be taken away from you. So it will be something like
But they are not saying that you can't speak French anymore.
not learning French is not speaking French. That time the society was like that. It was a small community. How many people are there? And you can see the nature of the society that they were not very learned. They were either from the agricultural background or doing some other thing. Like
Very small
it
town.
was not a noble society where learning was an importance. So that's why they were repenting that it was the only source of learning their language, the school, and which was taken away from them. Okay.
मैम
Yes.
मैम यहाँ पर पहले जो मतलब ये फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज बोलते थे तो मैम इन फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज ही बोलने नहीं आती तो लैंग्वेज कौन सी बोलते थे मतलब
वो अपने लोकल फ्रेंच लैंग्वेज में बोलते थे बट फ्रेंच ज्यादा अच्छे से सीखा नहीं. लाइक टेकिंग like they did not get to know a lot about the language, especially the kids जो सीख रहे हैं, जो kindergarten में हैं, अचानक से उनका फ्रेंच बंद हो गया, अब उनको जर्मन सिखाया जाएगा, वो अपना लैंग्वेज नहीं सीखेंगे ना. लेट्स इमेजिन दैट यू आर इन केजी राइट नाउ और ये ऑर्डर आ गया और तुमने सीख ही नहीं पाए. So it is ये फ्रांस के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से दिया गया that the language will not be. He was in a primary section where he had started the learning and how it is relevant on the society of the villagers. आप देख रहे हो कि villagers ने भी पढ़ाई छोड़ दी थी. Okay, so they did not got to know, like learning about a language is not about just speaking it. Getting to know about the history, the grammar rules or the particulars of the literature, they did not learn it.
मैम दे यूज्ड टू
They are imposing it on children and then the newer generations to come, they will
Yes.
all speak German from
They would speak. It is a very embarrassing situation for any country where, let's imagine that two parts of our country, like for example, when we share border with Pakistan. And now Pakistan occupies Punjab and says that now onwards nobody will speak Punjabi. All Punjabi, Hindi, everything will be eradicated from their language system. Only Urdu will be made or emphasized. So it is something, it is derogatory, and it is also not acceptable. Like snatching language reveals your liberty. अपनी भाषा में बोलना अपना फ्रीडम दर्शाता है, राइट? तो अगर वही फ्रीडम आपसे छीन लिया जाए तो इट इज समथिंग वेरी ड्रास्टिक और समथिंग वेरी लाइक unacceptable. Okay, so I heard an Amal say to me, I won't scold you, little France. You must feel bad enough. See how it is. Every day we have said to ourselves, bah, I have plenty of time, I'll learn it tomorrow. And now we see where we have come out. Ah, that's a great trouble with Alsace. She puts off learning till tomorrow. As I told you, the theme of procrastination is revealed here. People of Alsace always kept everything for tomorrow. Like they delayed everything. Now M Hamel is reproaching himself here. Reproaching here refers to condemning. और ये MCQ में आता है. Like एक line दे दिया जाएगा and you will be asked what kind of attitude is M Hamel representing. So is he reproachful? Is he boastful? So these kind of like MCQs you have to choose. So reproachful means like blaming oneself, like criticizing oneself. Condemn, reproach एक तरह के words हैं.
Like if you're criticizing your own city or saying, I
Like
get approached too much.
like if you condemn yourself, that means you're not approving something of yourself. So the correct word to signify condemn and reproach is not approving something. Okay. uh, how is it you pretend to
So
be French?
reproach is a verb, right?
Yes. How is it you pretend to be Frenchman and yet you can neither speak nor write your own language? But you are not the worst, poor little France. We have a great deal to reproach ourselves with. So here he said he's reproaching everybody in the French society who has not been aware of the language and who has not taken their language seriously. And he doesn't blame the little France. He blames the adults as well, because adults did not encourage children in learning. They engage children in different activities. Yes, the teacher also was not very serious. Your parents, now he gives the reason. How does M. Hamel reproach the French society? Ye is answer hai. Your parents were not anxious enough to have you learn. They preferred to put you to work on a farm or at the mills. Now, what does this signify? The parents put the children to farm or the fields, like Arjun, your answer. So they were not very willing to education. That's why they were repenting about the language. Okay, because learning a language is the only source. Like where do we learn a language, or where does kids learn a language? Like develop expertise in it from the school. Have I not often sent you to water my flowers instead of learning your lessons? And when I wanted to go fishing, did I not just give you a holiday? The teacher is reproaching himself that he too had engaged children in watering the plants as a punishment, and also he kept holidays for going on fishing.
Now in that way, he's saying that he wasted the time of his student by the miscellaneous activities.
Yes.
Such as the
Fishing and watering plants. Yes. Then from one thing to another, M. Hamel went to talk of the French language. He said, where is the line? Yes, it was the most beautiful language in the world, the clearest, the most logical, that we must guard it among us and never forget it. Please underline. This reflects resistance of the citizens towards the language imposition, and also reveals patriotism. All right. So further he says what uh, that we must guard it among us and never forget it, because when our people are enslaved, as long as they hold fast to their language, it is as if they are the key to their prison. So he here emphasizes on binding language as their cultural identity, because it is only through our language that we represent our cultural identity, and that is how we can reflect patriotism. If we own a language, nobody can take it away from us. Like same thing applies to education. If you're educated, even if you're tortured ruthlessly, or you are banished from society or anything, your brain cannot be taken away from you. It will have the education that you have. Through that, you can utilize it and transform the situation of your country. So that is what M. Hamel focuses on. Then he opened a grammar and read us all our lesson. I was amazed to see how well I understood it. All he said seemed so easy. Seemed so easy. I think too that I had never listened so carefully, that he had and that he had never explained everything with so much patience. Please underline this part. What does this reveal? That means now he was understanding the importance of the language since he was attentive towards it. We only understand importance of something when we love it, or when we try to be attentive towards it. It seemed almost as if the poor man wanted to give us all he knew before going away, and to put it all into our heads at one stroke. After the grammar, we had a lesson in writing. That day, M. Hamel had new copies for us written in a beautiful round hand France, Alsace, France, Alsace. They looked like little flags floating everywhere in the schoolroom. Please underline this part. Like he made everybody write France, Alsace in bold letters, and the notebooks were hung like in those days. There used to be a rod in the desk on the desk, and they used to hang their notebooks over there. So when they hung their notebooks over there, the letters of France and Alsace were revealing, and it appeared as a flag. Okay, so here he has compared the words France.
The notebook like read by two just of friends.
Yes, yes. So they look like little flags floating everywhere in the schoolroom. So this also reveals patriotism, and this also reveals how, like deeply they were resisting the language imposition. Okay. Now, if this question, sometimes the questions come in the long questions, like how did the French society represent patriotism? So these examples has to be written. Okay. You ought to have seen how everyone set to work and how quiet it was. The only sound was the scratching of the pens over the paper. Once some beetles flew in. Beetles here refers to what? Insects or flies. Okay. But nobody paid any attention to them, not even the littlest one. Please underline. What does the writer try? Like you can imagine that children were also grasped by the language learning program. They were not distracted. Generally, distractions are common among little children, which was not noticed there. Okay. Who worked right on tracing their fish hooks? What does fish hooks refers to? French alphabet, which appeared to be fish hooks. फिश हुक्स मतलब फिश हुक जैसा दिखता था फ्रेंच अल्फाबेट, वो ट्रेस कर रहे थे. लाइक प्राइमरी क्लासेस में क्या होता है, you try to learn like slanting line, sleeping line, you learn this, try to learn the alphabet A B C D. So similarly, they were tracing ABCD in French, and it appeared to be fish hooks, and because the letters of French were the dialect of French appeared to be like fish hooks, as if that was French too. On the roof, the pigeons cooed very low, and I thought to myself, will they make them in sing in German? Even the pigeons, very important line. Franz's worry about making the pigeons even sing in German. It implies what? That
nature supremacy.
sorry?
Nature supremacy.
Nature supremacy, very good. Nature will always be at supreme, and nobody, human beings can never control nature. It is only the human activities can take over on other human activities, but it cannot control nature. Nature will always supreme. So the Franz's wonder about controlling nature is revealed there. He was just repenting that why he was not like the pigeons, so that his language cannot be taken away from him. Whenever I looked up from my writing, I saw M. Hamel sitting motionless in his chair and gazing first at one thing. Just like that. Only the desks and the benches had been worn smooth, the walnut trees in the garden were taller, and the hop-vine that he had planted himself. So I twined about the windows to the roof. How it must have broken his heart to leave it all. Poor man, to hear his sister moving about in the room above packing their trunks. But they must leave the country next day. So it was the last day for M. Hamel in that place. He was. कौन है? क्या नाम है आपका? अच्छा बैठिए, मैं बुला रही हूँ.
ये तो आप बात ही कर लो उनसे, क्या मैं शाम को मिलता हूँ.
मेरे पास फोन है, बात कर लूँगी.
1 मिनट रुको, मैं पहले कर लूँ. हेलो. हाँ जी, मैं तो ये कह रहा हूँ, मेरी बात सुनो.
Okay. But he had the courage to hear every lesson to the very last. After the writing, we had a lesson in history, and then the babies chanted their baby, boo, bo. Down there, these are the alphabet, actually. Down there at the back of the room, old Hauser had put on his spectacles and holding his primer in both hands, spelled the letters with them. You could see that he too was crying. His voice trembled with emotion. And it was so funny to hear him that we all wanted to laugh and cry. Ah, how well I remember it, that last lesson. So this displays his trauma, or displays the shock that everybody was going through.
Ma'am, when we say that the old Hauser was a illiterate man and he was not able to speak the simplest French words.
Yes.
And by saying it, ma'am, मतलब वो बोले नहीं पा तो
So he was repenting for the situation that he was not able to speak his own language. So their voice was trembling and they were crying. All at once the church clock struck 12. Then the Angelus. Angelus is the church bell. Okay? At the same moment, the trumpets of the Prussians returning from drill sounded under our windows. M. Hamel stood up very pale in his chair. I never saw him look so tall. I never saw him look so tall. What does this imply? This signifies his resistance. He was taking pride in his own language and he displays resistance towards the oppression. Write this down. Ye question aayega. Look so tall refers that he was resisting the imposition of, yes, was proud, boastful about his own language, displaying resistance for the oppression.
मैम हमारी मैम बोल रही थी कि मतलब जो क्लासरूम है वो जैसे कॉलेज के आर्ट्स टाइप में रूम्स होते हैं कि एलिवेटेड रहते हैं.
Yes, yes.
तो मैम वो सिस्टम भी हो सकता है.
हो सकता था, but here tall also has a symbolic reference. Okay. Okay. So my friends said he, I, but if something choked him, he could not go on. So then he turned to the blackboard. Choked means the nahi bol pana. Yes. So he turned to the blackboard, took a piece of chalk, and bearing on with all his might, he wrote as large as he could, "Vive la France." He want to resist the oppression, and that's why he wrote in bold, "Vive la France." That means long live France. All these things, looking tall, writing "Vive la France," represents his patriotism and resistance towards oppression. He was revealing the power of resistance. Then he stopped and leaned his head against the wall, and without a word, he made a gesture to us with his hand. "School is dismissed, you may go." Okay.